Welcome to this edition of the Council Connection. I'm Councilwoman and Mayor Pro Tem Erin Stahl, and the subject of our show today is the truth about your tax dollars, uncensored and hopefully simplified. My guest today is the Director of Graduate Studies of Economics at U of D Mercy, and also he was my instructor when I was getting my master's in finance. Let me introduce to you Professor Veryser.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be here today.
Well, I was glad to do it because I think that as an economist, a good deal of the statistics that we deal with are actually government statistics and taxation. And I think that there needs to be an awful lot more education of the American public on taxes.
Oh, I definitely agree. And working together, and especially everything that I learned from your classes, I'm hoping that this will be very helpful for our residents.
I hope so, because most Americans, I don't think, realize that depending on how you measure it, taxes are taking somewhere between 43% and 49% of our income. And depending on what state you live in, you can be working anywhere from the end of May till the end of, from January to the end of May, or January to the middle of July, just to pay taxes.
And it's crazy, isn't it?
It is, and the Tax Foundation in Washington estimates that you will pay more for taxes than any other single item. More for taxes in housing, more for taxes in hospitalization, more for taxes in automobiles, and education, than anything else. So I think it's important that the public get a good idea or get their hands around, as it were, their intellectual hands around taxation, what it means, where the dollars go, where they're going to come from, and what type of commitments government at all levels are making for future tax dollars.
Exactly, and that's what we're going to be talking about in depth later on in the show. But first, before we get into that, the University of Detroit Mercy, they now have a branch in Macomb County.
Right, we've started a new program. It's a program in economics and finance, both at the master's and bachelor's level in Macomb County. And this is a new venture for us. So it will enable a student to go to Macomb County Community College for the first 2 years, saving a good deal of money, and then go on to receive their degree from University of Detroit Mercy, their bachelor's or their master's degree. We've discounted the tuition to meet competition, so we're looking forward to some very, very bright future, a very bright future for University of Detroit here in Macomb County.
Oh, and knowing that you're the director of graduate studies, and I mean, I learned so much from your classes.
Well, thank you.
And so I'm going to be telling all my friends about that as
I
well.
appreciate that, yes.
Yeah. And getting into it a little bit, you had mentioned the current situation today. I mean, people, even with technology and advances, it seems like we're working harder but earning less. And we have more time away from our children, and different things are going on. And I'm hoping that our presentation today will help explain why we're having that situation.
Yes, there's a number of reasons for that, and I think one of which is, of course, our economists always mention this, that our desires always outrun our income. For example, if I gave you $100,000 a year, in a year you'd come back to me and tell me you need more, because we adjust our level of spending to our level of income. A great economist by the name of Parkinson, that was his law, it was Parkinson's law, expenditure rises to meet income.
Definitely, and I discovered that when I had quit my full-time job and had a huge decrease. When I was making what I was living paycheck to paycheck. Now that I'm making like under $20,000 a year, I'm still living paycheck to paycheck.
Yes.
It's kind of interesting, and just my way of life.
That holds true not only for individuals, but it holds true for government, and it holds true for businesses too. That as business gets more income, they'll spend more income. Government gets more income, they'll spend more income. Then when they have to retrench, it's very, very difficult. And the laws of economics apply equally to government, to business, to churches, to individuals across the board.
Even your club. I know
Even your club.
I was the treasurer for my Toastmasters club, and that, the same thing applies there.
Absolutely.
And so with that said, there's a pie chart on the screen. It shows where our tax dollars go. And I actually used this with my income from last year, and it was kind of amazing that it was about 49% of my income going to different government entities. And can you explain a little bit more about that?
I think you did an excellent job. What you did is take your income and project it on the country, which is fairly accurate, depending on which tax bracket you're in. And I think regardless of political persuasion or regardless of philosophical persuasion, we all have to deal with a balance sheet. We all have to deal with so much coming in and so much going out. And this gives you an idea that most of our tax dollars are really going to the federal government. You might have, according to your pie chart here, you're looking at about 30% of your tax dollar going to local government, 70% going to federal government, which means that the control of those dollars is really leaving the community. In other words, here at St. Clair Shores, you have a community involvement, and people probably, there's a lot of people who are interested and can affect government policy at this level. The higher the level of government, the less the control. Because in St. Clair Shores, you might be 1 out of 20 or 30,000 people. In the United States, you're 1 out of 300 million people. So you can see that, in a sense, we have more control over our local tax dollars than over our federal tax dollars. And that's why I think citizens have to be more aware of being able to use their influence at the place where that influence can be most effective, and that is the local level of government.
Oh, and I definitely agree with you on that point. And, well, going into the next slide, like I was saying, when I was in your classes, you had said something that really hit home with me. You said, money is like water. It has to flow somewhere.
Yes.
And that just gave me a whole different perspective on money, whether it's your income or your investments. And, the issues aren't fixed by tax increases, because money, like water, is a limited resource. And you can't tax yourself into prosperity.
No, and I think what's happening is that the big question today is that we don't realize that business, government, and individuals have to work together. And in a sense, if the pie is expanding or contracting, it has an enormous effect. For example, in the state of Michigan today, our major problem is the big three are not selling cars. And because the big three are not selling cars, that's affecting local governments, it's affecting the state government. And what we have to realize is there has to be a way to grow that pie. We are all interconnected. And at one time, we always thought, well, it's government versus business, or business versus the individual, or whatever else, not realizing that we're all in it together. And what we're looking at, and I think the major question is how do we get the economy to grow? Taxation can be an inhibitor. In other words, if you have high taxations, as some of the cities in Michigan have very, very high taxation, high property taxation, high income taxation, you're going to have a tendency for business to avoid those areas and to go into areas of low taxation. In addition to which, we're competing worldwide now. So what we're faced with is, for example, I had one student tell me that he did a lot of pricing for one of the big automakers, one of the suppliers to the automakers. When they figured taxation in the United States, they said our cost of taxation on our product, 30-some%. In China, 15%. So now we're not only faced with competition within the United States or within the state of Michigan, but we're faced with worldwide competition of which taxes are going to be a cost that business considers.